Good morning. This is an NBC News special report. NBC News has learned that disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein is dead. Epstein took his own life while he was behind bars here in New York City, facing charges of sex trafficking.
Whilst in Great Britain, the Queen was caught in the political crossfire of Brexit, on the other side of the Atlantic, in the United States, a tornado was unleashed, which was to shake the crown to its very core. On the 10th of August 2019, Jeffrey Epstein was found hanged in his prison cell in Manhattan. The early noughties, Jeffrey Epstein had been one of the most highly rated financial advisors in America. This wealthy Wall Street enchanter was also a dreadful sexual predator. Jeffrey Epstein was recruiting underage girls, often ones who were destitute and who had lost their way. Under the cover of massages, he was forcing them into prostitution. At that time, the two-faced financier counted Prince Andrew, the Queen's second son, among his celebrity friends. Andrew had been introduced to Epstein by Ghislaine Maxwell. As well as being the billionaire seducer's official partner, Ghislaine was also one of the prince's long-standing friends.
Somebody like Epstein is enormously attractive to somebody like Prince Andrew. And Prince Andrew will have been impressed by him on so many different levels, you know, seen him as this sort of sophisticated man of the world, seen him as somebody who could give him a lifestyle he wanted.
On the 17th of August 2019, 8 days after Epstein's suicide, the Mail on Sunday's website featured these shocking images taken in December 2010 in New York. They were filmed whilst a case was being brought before the American courts against the financier for procuring a child for prostitution. They show Jeffrey Epstein leaving his private mansion in Central Park, accompanied by a young girl who is obediently following him. A few minutes later, Prince Andrew is captured accompanying a young girl to the door. His Royal Highness has been caught red-handed and is clearly involved in a toxic friendship with Epstein.
Prince Andrew said that he went over to stay with Jeffrey Epstein in 2010 because he wanted to end the relationship, which is absolute nonsense. He probably, silly enough, thought, oh, I'm going to do something about it. I'll go to New York. I'll go and stay in his house for 4 days. I'll go for a walk with him in Central Park and say, sorry, our friendship's finished. It's naive, it's arrogance. I mean, what's wrong with an email or a telephone? I mean, the man's a complete fool if he thinks that he's going to get away with a senior member of the royal family being photographed in Central Park with a sex offender.
By the end of that summer, the revelations were coming thick and fast. The British press published a new photo taken from the FBI's case file, showing Prince Andrew with his arm around the waist of a young blonde girl who was employed by Epstein at the time. The pressure was mounting. During these dark days, perhaps the Queen struggled to keep her diary. What could she write about? Her disappointment? Her sadness? No. What haunted Elizabeth II during this moment of intense loneliness? What tormented her most was the poison of guilt, doubts about her own life. The Queen wondered whether she had sacrificed her own children on the altar of the monarchy and her duties, whether she had been a good mother.
What drives Queen Elizabeth is not power per se. She is not a political woman. What drives her is the burden of duty. She has not been a good mother. She has been indifferent because she sacrificed family life for her duties as a queen. She is an excellent grandmother because by now she has got used to the job. But she was a terrible mother.
Outing is a weakness, whereas duty is a strength. At the start of September, forgetting Andrew, who was wavering, Elizabeth II sent Harry and Meghan on an official visit to South Africa. The couple's mission? To fly the flag for the United Kingdom on the other side of the Commonwealth. Harry and Meghan's African adventures were followed by more than 11 million followers on their Instagram account. The Queen's strategy of modernising the image of the British monarchy across the Commonwealth seemed to be working, thanks to the smile of this mixed-race princess. But Meghan and Harry weren't just there to represent the crown. They had their own scores to settle. In a new act of defiance to the British tabloids, the royal couple brought their son Archie into the spotlight for the first time. They went to introduce him to Archbishop Desmond Tutu, a hero of the battle against apartheid. So Archie was white after all. But Meghan's message was black. This trip also allowed Prince Harry to get another message across, the one dearest to his heart. Harry is, above all else, his mother Diana's heir. More than 20 years earlier, the Princess of Wales, by now separated from her husband Charles, came here to Angola. She intended to draw the attention of the world press to the tragedy of landmines abandoned in former war zones around the world. A year after Diana's visit to Angola, the UN banned the use of these landmines, which had killed numerous civilians. But still some remained, and Harry wanted to take up his mother's crusade. The world became a better place thanks to you, Mum. But the prince's pride hid a deep wound, caused by the brutal death of his mother in a car accident in Paris, while she was being followed by a horde of paparazzi. Harry was just 12 at the time. Confessions.
Being here now 22 years later, trying to finish what she started, yeah, it will be incredibly emotional. But everything that I do reminds me of her. But as I said, with the role, with the job, and the sort of the pressures that come with that, I get reminded of the bad stuff. Every single time I see a camera, every single time I hear a click, every single time I see a flash, it takes me straight back. So in that respect, it's the worst reminder of her life as opposed to the best, unfortunately.
I don't know whether there's a little bit of worrying about your wife being under the same pressure as your mother was under?
I think for me and for my wife, you know, of course there's a lot of stuff that hurts, especially when the majority of it is untrue. But I will not be bullied into playing a game that killed my mum.
On the last day of the African visit, it was Meghan's turn to unburden herself. Her gripes mirrored those of her husband. Being a modern-day princess was clearly an ordeal.
I had no idea, which probably sounds difficult to understand here, but when I first met my now husband, my friends were really happy because I was so happy, but my British friends said to me, "I'm sure he's great, but you shouldn't do it because the British tabloids will destroy your life." And I very naively, I'm American, we don't have that there. "What are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense. I'm not in tabloids." I didn't get it. So it's been complicated.
We must be seen to be believed. At the start of October 2019, this maxim, so often repeated to members of her royal family, was going round and round in the Queen's head. For Elizabeth II, Harry and Meghan's declarations were a sign of weakness and self-indulgence. The press was a necessary evil for the royal family. Elizabeth II recorded her vexation in her diary. Either that, or worse still, her inability to steer her grandson and his wife back onto the royal path. For Elizabeth II, however, the worst was still to come: disgrace. Far from the United Kingdom in New York, Virginia Roberts, a spokesperson for all of Jeffrey Epstein's victims, agreed to be interviewed by the BBC. She was the girl Prince Andrew had had his arm around on the photo released by the FBI. Virginia Roberts was just 17 when she was recruited by Epstein. A teenager on the wrong path, she became the billionaire's sex toy for 3 years. Epstein shared her with his prestigious friends, one of whom was Prince Andrew.
How many times did you have sex with Prince Andrew?
There was 3 times.
And where was that?
Guylain's townhouse in London, Jeffrey's mansion in New York, and Jeffrey's Island in the Caribbean. Guylain tells me that I have to do for Andrew what I do for Jeffrey. And that made me sick. It was disgusting. He wasn't mean or anything, but he got up and he said thanks and walked out, and I sat there in bed just horrified and ashamed and felt dirty, and I had to get up and go have a shower. And the next day, Guylain tells me I did a really good job. She pats me on the back and said, "You made him really happy." It was a wicked time in my life. It was a really scary time in my life. I had just been abused by a member of a royal family.
Recorded in New York in mid-November, the interview with Virginia Roberts was due to be broadcast at the start of December. When Andrew found out, he panicked. Without informing his mother, the Queen, he decided to grant his own interview to the BBC, on the condition that it be shown before the interview with Virginia Roberts. The interview with Prince Andrew was broadcast on the evening of Saturday, the 16th of November, live from Buckingham Palace, which was deserted since it was the weekend.
July of this year, Epstein was arrested on charges of sex trafficking and abusing dozens of underage girls. One of Epstein's accusers, Virginia Roberts, has made allegations against you. She says she met you in 2001, she dined with you, and she went on to have sex with you in a house belonging to Ghislaine Maxwell. Your response?
I have no recollection of ever meeting this lady. None whatsoever.
You don't remember meeting her?
No. That couldn't have happened because the date that is being suggested, I was at home with the children.
You know that you were at home with the children? Was it a memorable night?
On that particular day that we now understand that is the date, which is the 10th of March, I was at home. I was with the children. I'd taken Beatrice to a Pizza Express in Woking for a party at I suppose sort of 4 or 5 in the afternoon.
Why would you remember that so specifically? Why would you remember a Pizza Express birthday and being at home?
Because going to Pizza Express in Woking is an unusual thing for me to do. A very unusual thing for me to do.
She provided a photo of the two of you together.
Yes.
Your arm was around her waist.
Yes.
You've seen the photo.
I've seen the photograph.
How do you explain that?
I can't. Because I have absolutely no memory of that photograph ever being taken.
Do you recognise yourself in the photo?
Yeah, it's pretty difficult not to recognise yourself.
So it's possible that it was you with your arm around
That's
her
me, but whether that's my hand or whether that's the position, I have simply no recollection.
I wonder if you have any sense now of guilt, regret or shame about any of your behaviour in your friendship with Epstein?
Do I regret the fact that he has quite obviously conducted himself in a manner unbecoming? Yes.
Unbecoming? He was a sex offender?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm being polite, in the sense that he was a sex offender.
The following morning, the British press laid into Prince Andrew. Not one single word of remorse was the headline in the Mail. The Metro went one step further with Duke of Porkies. The Duke had a pizza alibi, was the ironic headline in the Sunday Times.
He not only blows it up for himself, but what he does is he reminds people of all of the worst things about monarchy, of all of the venality, all of the stuff that is old-fashioned, backward-looking. He said that he wouldn't have noticed all the young women around Epstein because they were servants, and he didn't notice servants. And, I mean, imagine that. Imagine growing up in such a way that you are actually blind to the people around you, that they become like this chair.
There was consternation at Buckingham Palace. The ladies-in-waiting averted their gazes. The advisors made a beeline for the exit. Elizabeth II was furious.
When the Queen heard the reports and subsequent news bulletins about the interview, she was not just shocked, but she was angry. Angry that someone in her own family, her son, had let the side down, had let the team down, and brought shame. And off the back of that, she took the decision, and a very tough decision, to effectively fire him from the royal family, strip away everything that he'd been involved with.
Andrew was encouraged by his mother to commit harakiri. I have asked Her Majesty if I may step back from public duties for the foreseeable future, and she has given her permission, wrote the Prince in a press release. Classic Elizabeth II.
The Queen is an authoritarian figure, but her genius throughout all the crises she has faced during her 68 years on the throne has been to not show that. Once the Queen became aware of the scale of the scandal, like an iron hand in a velvet glove, she got rid of Andrew. But the next day, she put on a show for the photographers and accompanied him to church.